Someone asked you today how you were doing. You said fine, not because you were fine, because the full answer would have taken too long. And somewhere along the way, you learned that the full answer makes people uncomfortable. So you compress it. You hand them the version that requires nothing from them. You say fine, and you move on, and you carry whatever fine is covering, alone, quietly, the way you always have. That's not a communication habit. That's a survival habit, wearing a social one's clothing. You woke up this morning with a list already running. Not a written list, the other kind, the one that starts before you open your eyes, the one that has other people's problems on it, before your own name appears anywhere. You lay there for maybe 40 seconds, just 40 seconds, and your brain was already running logistics for someone else's day. What your kid needs, what your parent is going to struggle with this week, what's about to go sideways at work if you don't get ahead of it now. Your own name never made the list. It never does. And you've stopped noticing that it never does. That's the part that should concern you most. And the strangest part? You don't experience this as burden. You experience it as just how mornings work. You've believed this for so long that the alternative, waking up and thinking about yourself first, feels almost embarrassing to even imagine. That's not conscientiousness. That's someone who learned that other people's needs came first and never unlearned it. Here's one more, and this one's harder to say out loud. Something good happened recently. Real good. The kind of thing you worked toward for a long time. You felt it for about 4 minutes. Then you were already moving on, already scanning for the catch, already bracing for the moment the other shoe drops. Because peace feels like an intermission, already managing the next thing, already making sure everyone around you was okay with the news, before you'd even finished sitting inside it yourself. Nobody taught you to do that. Nobody had to. You taught yourself. In a house where there wasn't much room for your feelings to take up space, where the emotional weather of other people required your constant attention, where being visibly happy about something felt like an imposition on a room that was already carrying enough. You learned to travel light, even with good things, especially with good things. Even now, decades later, when the room is different and the people are different and nobody is asking you to shrink, you still shrink. That's not humility. That's a child still making themselves small in a room that stopped requiring it decades ago. What all three of these point to is something that happened before you had words for it. You became the adult before the adults did. Not all at once, not dramatically. It happened in small moments nobody documented and nobody named. The day you noticed that checking on someone first meant less tension in the house. The day you realized that needing something created a problem, but solving something created relief. The day you stopped waiting to be taken care of, because waiting had not been working out. You were not a troubled child. You were not a damaged child. You were a very capable child in a situation that needed someone capable. And children like that don't get to fall apart. And you were there. The problem is not what you did then. The problem is that your nervous system never got the memo that the situation changed. It kept the settings. It kept running the same program that kept you safe at 9 years old, in a body that is now in its 40s, in rooms where nobody is asking you to carry everything. The program doesn't know that. It just keeps running. It was never designed to check whether the emergency was still real. So, when you soften your tone, before the other person has shown any sign of being upset, that's the program. When you feel guilty on a Sunday afternoon, when nothing is wrong and everyone is fine, that's the program. When someone does something genuinely kind for you, something simple and without agenda, and your first instinct is to deflect it, minimize it, hand it back before it lands, that is the program running a very old line of code. Receiving feels like a contract. Needing feels like pressure. Being cared for means something is about to be asked of you in return. You're not a closed-off person. You're a person running software that was written for a different operating environment. And here's what that costs you. Not in the abstract, in the specific. It costs you the moment after something good happens. The 4 minutes that should be 10 or 20 or an hour of just sitting inside a thing you earned. It costs you the friendship where you give everything and receive carefully and always feel, underneath the warmth, a specific and nameless kind of alone. Not lonely exactly, just unmatched, like you're operating at a depth that the dynamic doesn't quite reach. It costs you rest, real rest, not the collapse at the end of a day that has finally outrun you, the other kind. The kind where you stop because you chose to stop, because you decided you were enough today, because the list can wait and you can't. That kind of rest feels dangerous to you. Even now, even when you know, consciously and clearly, that nothing will fall apart if you stop for an hour. Your body doesn't believe that yet, and until it does, rest will always feel like something you're stealing. There's a reason it doesn't believe it, and it matters that you hear this clearly. Psychologist Kristen Neff has spent years studying this exact pattern, and what her research finds about you is not what you probably expect. You ain't someone who lacks confidence. You ain't someone who falls apart under pressure. You're likely one of the most capable, perceptive, emotionally intelligent people in most rooms you walk into. What you lack is the internal permission to exist without producing. Rest doesn't compute. Receiving doesn't compute. Celebrating doesn't compute. Not for long, not fully, not without immediately turning toward the next thing. Because the version of yourself that was safe, that was wanted, that was enough, was always the version that was useful. You're still, after all this time, trying to earn a place you already occupy. And the other thing worth knowing, research into how early stress shapes the nervous system shows something that changes how all of this feels once you understand it. The brain doesn't just remember the environments it grew up in, it builds itself around them. The vigilance you carry isn't a habit you can think your way out of, it's built in. It was laid down in the years when your brain was still deciding what kind of world it was living in, and it decided, based on the available evidence, that this was a world where someone needed to be watching, someone needed to be ready, someone needed to make sure things held together. You volunteered, or more accurately, you were elected. Without a vote, without a campaign, just by being there and capable and young enough that nobody thought about what it was costing you. Nobody knew to ask, and you never said. You've been the most reliable person in almost every room you've ever walked into. The one who notices, the one who anticipates, the one who arrives already having thought about what everyone else will need. That's not a small thing. That's an extraordinary thing that required an extraordinary amount of you and started requiring it long before you were equipped to understand what was being asked. The child who did that deserved someone to notice, not to need something from them, not to praise the competence, just to notice that there was a child in there, underneath all that capability, who was also tired, who also had a list of their own that never quite made it to the top. That child is still in there, still running the morning logistics before their own name appears anywhere, still saying fine when the full answer would take too long, still carrying the good things lightly, so nobody has to accommodate the weight of their joy. You don't have to fix that today, but you can see it now.